What will you find on Gorgon?
How's it going, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central, and today we are sitting down with Carrie Patel, the game director for The Outer Worlds, Peril on Gorgon, to talk a little bit about the DLC. So, I know a lot of people have been hungry for more The Outer Worlds content, which is an awesome place to be with a new IP. So first off, congratulations on this launch. I hope everything's been relatively smooth for you guys. If I'm someone who's gone through The Outer Worlds and I've done everything there is to do, I've done all the side quests, I've spent countless hours. What can somebody look forward to with Peril on Gorgon?
So Gorgon has a new story, several new locations, some new characters, and basically just a lot more of the content that players who enjoyed the base game are going to love. Again, this takes the player to a new location called the Gorgon Asteroid for an entirely new story campaign with its own side quests and side missions. You'll get 3 new science weapons as you're exploring, and then there are several new locations that we've added in many cases to existing base game maps to just expand the world for the player and give them more places to dig into new content and characters.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So for players who are new to the game, if they're just jumping in for the first time, they've picked up The Outer Worlds, they've picked up Peril on Gorgon, what do they need to do exactly to get to this DLC? Do they need to be far into the game, or what's the process for them accessing that?
So you do need to make a bit of progress. The content with Gorgon is a bit higher level, so we want to make sure that players have the skill points as well as the equipment to deal with it. The entry point can happen anytime between the completion of the Monarch crit path and the quest Radio Free Monarch, or the point of no return save that is generated when the player reaches the end game. At any moment between those 2 points, once you travel on your ship, there will be a unique event that gets fired off. And that will start your entry into Gorgon.
Okay, awesome. And so players who have completed the game, as long as they have the point of no return save, they can access it as well?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. So I know The Outer Worlds pulls a lot of inspiration from kind of pulp sci-fi, and that seems to be very prominent and kind of amplified with Peril and Gorgon. Your crew on The Unreliable even talks about it being kind of parallel to a serial drama. So were there any specific shows or movies or anything like that that kind of inspired this new adventure?
I mean, not specifically. I mean, we wanted to take a little more of a pulp noir approach with Peril on Gorgon. We felt that was something that it synced well with the basic aesthetics and flavors of The Outer Worlds, while also giving players a slightly new twist and spin on these things that feels, I think, very appropriate for the subject matter of Peril on Gorgon. But we weren't so much saying, let's look at the Maltese Falcon or, any specific, property, as much as like, these are flavors and themes and tones and elements that even people who are not really connoisseurs of pulp noir are going to recognize as kind of living in this general flavor.
That's awesome. So it's not super in. You don't have to know a specific movie to get the references and appreciate it. Okay,
correct.
Cool. Do you have a favorite film in that genre personally?
I mean, Casablanca is a classic.
Yeah.
That was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that. I've played the first couple hours of it, and I've noticed like right away with the dialogue that it's, even compared to the base game, and it's ramped up a lot. So I really appreciated that.
Nice.
So Peril on Gorgon, it was your first release as a game director.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about what that process was like compared to previous roles? And I'm sure it was a lot more involved for you and a lot more responsibility, but what was that like going from your previous roles to game director?
It was really exciting. So I'm a narrative designer. I've been at Obsidian for almost 7 years now. I'm a senior narrative designer, and I've worked on the Pillars of Eternity series, as well as the base game of The Outer Worlds. And so this was definitely a change in responsibility and role. There, certainly is a lot more that I'm responsible for. And I think the biggest thing is there are a lot of elements and departments and disciplines where it's like, oh, I am not an artist or a programmer or a level designer, but I need to be able to, make decisions that are going to inform and drive the work of these departments. And so I think a big thing is learning how to ask the right questions to get to the information you need, while being comfortable with the fact that you will not be an expert and you will not know, like, I will not know the programming that the actual programmers on the team know. But I can get the answers to the questions that I need to understand in order to make good decisions about how to use our resources and how to drive the vision of the game. I think there were also a few moments where it's like, when you're on the team, you're used to sort of getting answers from someone up the chain. And there were a few moments early in the process when it was like, oh, wow, someone needs to make the decision about what we're doing with this thing. And it's like, oh, that's me now.
Oh, I'm that person now.
But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been awesome to have, the support of the rest of the team and the studio and a fantastic group of leads that I got to work with on this. So that's been
awesome.
Good.
That's great to hear. So with that being said, are you going to be involved with what comes next for the Outer Worlds? I know this is the first bit of DLC. Without spoilers, does this tie into the main story at all? Or is there a cliffhanger? Or is this pretty self-contained? If somebody plays through this, does it have a defined beginning and an ending?
It does have a defined beginning and ending, but we really did want this to feel synced up and meshed in with the base game. So someone playing the content, from the start, like who begins a new game and just has this content with the rest of their game, like, you will notice we do have UI elements that identify when you're on a Gorgon quest. And obviously, our new areas are related to the DLC content, but you can jump back and forth between the base game content and the Gorgon content. We wanted this to feel like another seamless part of Halcyon. And so it does have its own story arc. It does have its own, sort of internal crit path, like a lot of our, like Groundbreaker does, like Monarch does. But, we wanted to find that sweet spot between having events and having content that reflects on the larger world, and that reflects on the quests that you're doing as part of the main game. But also that is self-contained enough that it is going to feel appropriate and adaptable for players, like no matter where they're entering that content from, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's one thing that I really noticed. Like the way they introduce this it's pretty inconspicuous. You just you get a package on your ship, and it it feels like the rest of the game where something just happens and you just go down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out what's going on. So yeah, I like that it weaves in a way it's defined. It has a beginning and an end, but also it doesn't feel like this isolated expansion DLC separate thing. So are there any other key features or details that you really want to kind of stress for fans of the series, fans of the game? Like, what are you most excited about for players to kind of experience with this?
Well, I mean, coming from a narrative background, I'm super excited about the new story and characters that many of our writers have introduced. I think we've got some fantastic new conversations and, moments that players who enjoyed that in the base game are really going to love. I also think that our environment art team has really taken our area design and just like the look and aesthetic and the environmental storytelling of many of our areas just up to a new level. And there are also a few ways, and I don't want to spoil anything, but we really did try to embrace player freedom with this DLC. And so we really did go out of our way to try to accommodate, like, okay, well, if players color outside the lines here, how can we accommodate them? And how can we make sure that, we're not just providing a fall through, but that the story really is shaping itself around the decision they just made. So I think players who really dig in, explore heavily, and try different things are going to be rewarded.
Awesome. What percentage would you say, if you had to compare this to the base game, like roughly an amount of time, if you could quantify it, I guess, for someone picking up this DLC, what can they expect?
I would say that between the content that is on Gorgon and the content that we're introducing into new off-world areas, players can roughly expect something the scope of Monarch.
Oh, beautiful. Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, Carrie, so much for your time. I really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with me about this DLC. I think it's really important for a lot of people to, put a face to the name and see that there's a lot of awesome, passionate people behind these projects. So it's always awesome to be able to sit down and talk a little bit more about this. If you guys haven't checked it out already, Peril on Gorgon is out now on pretty much all the platforms that the Outer Worlds is available. And thanks so much again.
Thank you.